Good morning, children. Today we're going to talk about how to use an 1176. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what can this guy tell me that mother did not tell me when I was growing up? You know, those little pieces of advice she peppered here and there, like blow your nose, say hi to the lady, don't overuse the all button mode. Well, you never know. She might have missed something. Check it out. Why has the 1176 been so popular since the 60s when the mighty Bill Putnam unleashed it on us lowly humans? Good question. I think it's three things. A, it has a very particular tone and a very useful tone. 2, it's very versatile. You can make it do just about anything if you know how. And 3, it's easy to use. It only has 4 knobs and 4 buttons. As a musician, you expect it to know how to count to 4. That makes a good match. The first knob we're going to look at is the input knob. The 1176 does not have a threshold knob. It's a fixed threshold compressor. When you have a threshold knob on a different kind of compressor, you bring the threshold down to meet the signal. On the 1176, you use the input knob to bring the signal up to meet the threshold. It's the other way around. The second knob is the output knob, the classic makeup gain knob, which we need since we're going to grossly overcompress everything with this little sucker. Here's the fun thing. Once you're mostly happy with your compression setting, but maybe you want to play around with it a little more, a little less, you can do that at constant level by doing this. Use both the input and the output knob at the same time, like this. Now we know if we want more compression, we got to raise the input. But we want constant level, so we're going to lower the output and do this, like this. So I'm raising the input and lowering the output at the same time. Basically, I'm heightening the compression, but keeping the output gain at the same level. If this is too much compression, I just want to ease up, I just do this. Lower the input, but I compensate by raising the output. It's pretty simple. Now, basically this is it. More compression, less compression. More compression, less compression. We like it. Next, attack and release knobs. We know what they do. The 1176 attack can be very, very fast, down to the microsecond range, which is great for drums and stuff like that. If you want it to be very fast, turn it up to 7. Makes sense? No, it doesn't make sense, but that's the way it is. 7 is the fastest, 1 is the slowest. Same for release. 7 is the fastest, 1 is the slowest. You will make that mistake. We all make that mistake. It's okay. That's it for the knobs. Let's talk about buttons. There are 4 ratio buttons, 4, 8, 12, and 20:1. The trick about the 1176 is that the supposedly fixed threshold actually varies with the ratio. So the threshold at 4:1 is lower than the threshold at 20:1, meaning you're going to have to hit the machine harder to hit the threshold when you're going 20:1. That makes sense, right? Yes, it does. Now, it's not that big of a difference, but you'll hear it and feel it when you start using it. As for the all button mode, you might want to try and push in all buttons at the same time. It might work. And for the lazy people amongst us, you could just use the 4 and 20 at the same time. Works too, and it's arguably easier. Oh, and I lied before. There's not 4 buttons, there's 8. I was trying to make a point. But the 4 buttons on the right here are either meter related, and I suggest you have the gain reduction engaged at all times, or the off button, which I will not explain. We know enough to be dangerous. Let's make some music. Let me show you some examples on how to use the 1176 in real life. First, let's try and set it up as a compressor, leveler kind of thing. On the bass, for example. Listen to the part and memorize the sound. Focus your attention on the level jumps in between the notes, and also that little ghost notes. Boom, 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 those things. Check it out. It's funky, and that's great, but I also need it to be solid because it's the middle and the anchor of the bottom of the track. So I'm going to compress it with the 1176. Now, what are my startup settings? I know I want to level, I know I want to compress. So I'm going to choose a ratio of 4:1. I may switch to 8:1 if that's not enough, but 4:1 should be a good start. I do not want to alter the sound of the bass. I just want it to be more even. So I'm going to open the attack all the way. Remember, if you open, you go down to 1. And I'm also going to open the release all the way. So once it starts compressing, it'll stay in compression for a long time. There will be no pumping. It's just going to be a solid block of sound. As for the levels, I have my input at 10 a.m. and my output at 2 p.m. That's a basic setting. If the track is properly recorded and your session is properly gain staged, this should work. Doesn't always happen, but I recorded this one, so it should work. Let's listen to it. We already hear that compared to the original, which is this, despite the level difference, the compressor is already doing its job. I'll play it again. Original. And now compressed. We got ways to go, but it's pretty good. So I think that we can compress more. So if you remember, I'm going to get harder into the compressor and lower the output a little bit. And it sounds like this. Maybe a little more output gain. Maybe a little more compression. So I'm going to go from 4-to-1 to 8-to-1. Let's compare with the original. Compressed. We have a much more even sound, and it doesn't sound compressed. Well, not too compressed. Now, that thing kind of bothers me, so what can I do about that? I guess I could shorten the attack to say 4, so that way that little transient will get caught on the third note. Check it out. With the wide open attack, with a shorter attack, better. As a reminder, we started here. And now we're here. It's a little more tame, but it's more even. It'll be a lot easier to mix in the track with the bass drum and the rest of the stuff. Next, I'd like to show you how to use the 1176 as a peak limiter. For example, on a vocal. How to get rid of those annoying hits, that get into your eyes when you listen to the vocal. It's very simple. I know I'm limiting, so I'm going to go to 20-to-1. I'm going to start on my basic stuff. I know I want to catch those peaks, so I'm probably going to have a short attack, up to 7, and a short release. All I want to do is just go boom, whenever the peaks are going over the threshold. So let's listen to the track. First, let's listen to the clean signal. Here we go.
Let's get down to business. You know what we're both here for. Let's get down to business.
There's a lot of plosives. Let's get that aggressive 3K thing down to business. Try and listen again to all those peaks that kind of ruined the experience of listening to him sing. Check it out.
Let's get down to business. You know what we're both here for. Let's get down to business, 'cause we just can't take no more.
It's very peaky, so let's insert the 1176 on this track and see what the basic settings I just chose do.
Let's get down to business. You know what we're both here for. Let's get down to business, 'cause we just can't take no more.
I think you could use a tiny bit more, a smidgen more compression, especially for that last business, and I would get a more blocky kind of sound, more in your face sound. Check it out.
Let's get down to business. You know what we're both here for. Let's get down to business, 'cause we...
I like that. Compared to the raw signal.
Let's get down to business. You know what we're both here for. Let's get down to business.
And with the compressor,
Let's get down to business.
it's a little too quiet. I'm going to give it a little more gain.
Let's get down to business. You know what we're both here for. Let's get down to business.
It does a good job at the business and the get down. It's pretty nice. The let's get, check it out.
Let's get down to business.
There's still a little bit of nyet.
Let's get down to business.
What I think is happening is that the release is so fast that the 1176 is pumping a little bit. So I'm going to slow the release down and see what that does. Check it out before the release is slowed and then after the release is slowed. Before.
Let's get down to business.
And then I'm going to take it down to 4.
Let's get down to business.
That works. Again, very short release.
Let's get down to business.
And then with a slower release.
Let's get down to business.
Nice.
You know what we're both here for. Let's get down to business. 'Cause we just can't take no more.
As a reminder, we started here.
Let's get down to business. You know what we're both here for. Let's get down to business. 'Cause we just can't take no more.
With the compressor.
Let's get down to business. You know what we're both here for. Let's get down to business. 'Cause we just can't take no more.
I like that. That's a good basis to sweeten the track. One of my favorite things about the 1176 is that it's great at giving punch to tracks that deserve it. Like, for example, bass drums. Check this out. This is a raw bass drum. Sounds good, but it could use more punch. The principle is as such. Say you compress the bass drum, but you open the attack. You're going to let the attack through, and the rest of the body of the bass drum is going to get compressed, meaning that the attack is going to be louder in relation to the body than it was before. More attack, more punch. Let's try it. I'm going to turn the 1176 on and listen to it with my basic settings. 41, middle attack, middle release, 10 and 2. Here we go. Yeah, that's not working. First, I don't think I'm compressing enough. I think that the attack is still too closed and catching too much of the transient. And the gain makeup is too low, so I'm not matching my levels. So I'm going to address all that stuff in one pass. Let's compare with the raw signal. Raw. With the compressor. Also, focus on the bottom of the bass drum. I'm going to play it raw again. Listen to how low it goes and how much rumble there is on it. And then listen to it again with the compressor and focus on that part, the very, very bottom of the bass drum. See if it goes up, if it stays the same, if it moves forward, how does it feel? So this is raw. And with the compressor. It's tighter, right? Bottom goes up a little bit. The tone of the box actually shapes the sound of the bass drum. So much so that you can actually use the 1176 as a tone shaper without compression. Let me show you. Check it out. I'm going to switch to 20:1 ratio, which is essentially a limiting ratio. Basically what I'm doing is I'm using the highest ratio so I can have the highest threshold, so I can not get any compression. I'm going to wide open the attack so that it's very slow getting into it, and then make a very short release. So if something happens, it's really going to be very small. And then I'm going to lower the input all the way down to the highest maximum level before compression. That's good. And then compensate. So this is raw. Now listen to the tone of the bass drum raw. And now with the 1176, no compression, just passing through the box. Isn't that cool? Check out the bottom, check out the presence, check out the shape of the bass drum. Does it do this or does it do this? Check it out. So raw. With the 1176. And that's no compression, just the color of the box, almost like an EQ, but without EQing. The bass drum no longer has that flabby thing in the bottom. It's kind of tight in one piece, a solid piece of sound. I like that. So you can get more attack or more punch by opening the attack on the 1176 and compressing more, or you can just not compress at all and use the tone of the box to shape the bottom of your track. It's very practical. Next, let's look at it when you abuse it. And now for the gentleman who has everything, the all button mode, the one that goes kh. It's very useful for effects or for parallel compression or for wacky stuff. Like, for example, listen to this snare drum. Not the finest recording. It's fat, but some of the stuff is peaky, doesn't have a lot of personality. Let's give it some. So all button mode, just push all buttons in. I'm a trained professional, don't try this at home. There you go. Sounds like this with our basic setting. Turn it on, boom. Obviously, I gotta hit it harder. Here we go. Aha. Starting to sound interesting. Now, if you play with the attack and the release, that's where it gets real fun. Check it out. As a reminder, we started here. Now we're here. The box is freaking out, but the principles are the same. If you shorten the attack, you're killing the transient. If you lengthen the release, you're going to keep it together. And then if you open the attack and shorten the release, it's going to go crunch. Like all superstars, the 1176 has been much imitated and, sign of the times, turned into plugins. So I thought it would be fun to take the settings we liked earlier on the bass drum and apply them to 3 different kinds of plugin emulations of the 1176. So first, the actual box. Turn that off. Now the Bomb Factory BF76. Okay, now the UA 1176LN. Okay, and now the CLA 76 from Waves. Those are the same settings. What's going on? They all sound different. Different levels, different everything. Well, first I have a Rev H 1176 that does not have the transformer inputs. That makes a difference. Those are all Rev D or E models, I suppose. That said, it should basically be in the ballpark. The lesson here is don't assume that all the settings are going to match from plugin to plugin. It never works that way. Since I'm a masochist, I decided to take an hour and try and match the sound, not the settings. That's the next step. As you can see, the settings no longer match. As far as the tone goes, this is what I could come up with in my current state of mind. This is the original. This is the BF76. Different, right? This is the 1176 LN from UA. And this is a CLA 76. I'll play it again. They're in the ballpark, but they all have different colors. Listen to the bottom, low end extension, or high pass, presence, forward to back, and the shine, the aggressivity of it all. So let's start with the original. BF76. UA. CLA. The reality is that I have never heard two 1176s sound quite the same. The same thing is happening here. Different original machines are being modeled. The designers have different views. They're done at different times. Ultimately, it's up to your taste. The box is very versatile. It's worth learning it. And I have one last piece of advice. Don't ever forget what your mother said. Et voilà.